And yes, I still use a mouse. Um, I'm telling you, this library has the greatest books. Um, the Queen's Central Library. Freedom is not enough. Patrick Moynihan report. Now, the Patrick Moynihan report created a lot of policies that damage the black community. Um, the Patrick Moynihan report was one big one. The Clinton Biden crime bill was one, which still affects black communities even today, even from this. And I think this was in the 70s. The crime bill was in the 90s. So you're talking about a community that has been beaten up for 50 years. And since they killed Hampton, Fred Hampton, there's been no resistance to the beating. So black people always had slavery, abolition. You know, then you have Reconstruction, right? So you had civil rights, but then you had the Klan with black codes and Jim Crow. But then you had uh, always a robust civil rights movement pushing against that. Then you had the later civil rights movement that we know of in the 60s with King, and then you had the Black Power movement that's pushing against still Jim Crow, redlining, all of that stuff, Klan terror, police terror. Then all that terror stuff, all the Confederacy stuff kept going. And then we had nothing to push against it. And when you see black people, that's what you have to understand. And you say, what's wrong with them? 50 years of these kinds of policies. And what happens is when you get a policy like the Moynihan Report, then 20 or 30 years after that, you get crime bill. It's not like one goes away. You just pile the policies on top of each other, and they're all piled on top of our heads and on top of our minds, and on top of our condition. And if you don't have a movement, a real movement that pushes back against it, not one that asks that wants to push on your emotions, saying accept me or my life matters too, but an actual movement that pushes back against the concept of injustice, the concept of Klan and police and overseer brutality. If you don't have that, then you're just going to be devastated generation after generation. And we're talking 50 years of bombardment with no defense. So you have 2 generations of black people in the United States who don't even know what community means. Never seen it. They've never seen it intact, our community intact. You got to think about that. 2 generations of black people never seen community. And I'm not talking about your family's all right and your mom looks out for you and your uncles come through when you're in trouble. That's not what community is. But a community that is intact. You have 2 generations of black people that have never seen it. All right, let's get to the reading because we're 4 minutes in. But it's important, the Moynihan and report, and a lot of these politics and these things like that. It's important to know it. So this chapter is chapter 6, Moynihan, Nixon, and the Family Assistance Plan. Daniel Patrick Moynihan liked to tell friends that he was baptized a Catholic and born a Democrat. Richard Nixon, however, was a Protestant and about as partisan a Republican as one could be. Many Democrats, perceiving him as vindictive and deeply suspicious man, and recalling his support for Senator Joseph McCarthy in the 1950s, detested him. Black civil rights leaders too expected the worst when Nixon took office in January 1969. Though he professed to be an advocate of civil rights, he joined many other Republicans who employed code language as part of a Southern strategy aimed at winning over white voters who resented Black Power rhetoric and deplored urban rioting. Many Republicans, like many blue-collar Democrats, spoke angrily and often about crime in the streets, mothers on welfare, and the need for law and order. The Southern strategy refined the Republican leaders in the years to come, ultimately moved the GOP well to the right, intensified political partisanship, and transformed the geography of the U.S. politics. Um, I know my mother and them used to like Nixon because he gave black people school, like he gave us school money for your children to go to school, buy clothes, get book bags, and things like that every year. So a lot of blacks liked him in that sense. And I remember hearing a tape where Nixon said he didn't know what to do with black people in the United States because, and the thing is, this is the thing that's weird about, and not just white people, everybody does this now. They do this weird thing about, well, black people in this condition without any context at all. Well, how did they get like that? And what they'll do, and black people do this too. It's like chalk on a chalkboard when I hear a black person do this. They'll say, well, those people over there doing well. And I'm like, I don't want to hear that 100 people are doing well in a city when 200,000 are sleeping on the street. That doesn't make that's not how you do public policy. That's not even how you manage a society. That's insane thinking. But we do it. So, Nixon was always, I don't know what to do with the American blacks because, they don't have a home to really go back to. I don't care. You can do this 23andMe and all this DNA stuff. They don't know where you come from over there. They don't. It's all mixed up. There may be records of it. There may be records of it, like your ancestors here, if you can trace them back. Somebody might have a records to where but you don't know if they took them from Ghana and they were marched from different villages and different places interior to Ghana. They didn't keep records of what villages that they were stealing people from, right? So we here, we don't know where we come from. We know the continent, but Africa's the largest continent on the planet. And in 54 countries, I think it is. I know it's over 50 countries. How many different groups are in each country? And the Egypt area, what they call Saharan Africa, has been invaded and completely pushed out anything that was black. So you have some places where now you have internal movement. So this planet is our home as human beings, and that's the only way black Americans can really function. Because even though the United States doesn't treat us like it's our home, it's the only one we know. But as human beings, you have to know the planet is yours too. And you have to also know you are older than everybody else. It's very important that black people understand this. A lot of us, we've broken off from everything, and there's no context, and so we think our life started when we were born. We are the oldest people on the planet, and that comes with a certain kind of responsibility and a certain kind of mindset, and we need to really get to that. Given these circumstances, it would have seemed bizarre in late 1968 to imagine that Nixon would ask Moynihan to join his administration, or that Moynihan would accept. Indeed, Nixon often raged against intellectuals, professors. He later lectured Henry Kissinger, who had been one. Are the enemy? Write that on a blackboard 100 times and never forget it. But ask Nixon, did, and Moynihan said yes. From January 1969, when Nixon took office, through December 1970, Moynihan not only served as a loyal trooper in Nixon's camp, but also occupied an office in the west basement of the White House, at first as an executive secretary of a newly created Urban Affairs Council. when Nixon set up the council, he had in mind that it would become, for many domestic matters, the equivalent of the National Security Council, which had been established in 1947 to advise the president concerning issues of international import. Nixon himself was chair of the new council, and all cabinet members except the secretaries of state, defense, and treasury were members. So they study cities. It's important that you understand they study cities all the time. And they study us all the time. One of my elders always says, we are the most studied people on the planet. We really are. I remember Idris Elba was saying he admires the Black American more than almost everyone in the diaspora. He said because he said you guys are cut off from your past. He said because when you go to England and you ask people where you're from, Black people say, "Oh, I'm from Nigeria," or "I'm from the Ivory Coast," or "I'm from." They know where. And he asked an American guy, "Where you from?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm from Brooklyn or whatever." He said, "No, where you from?" And he said, "Oh, my mom and them, her people from Virginia, or like my parents, my mother's from Mississippi. I don't know my father's side." He said, "Man, they don't know where they're from back on the continent." He said, "But y'all keep creating things like you creating not just jazz, but hip hop and all this art and culture. To be cut off and to still be able to do that," he said he always admired us. And that's cool. That's good. But it's time that we get to understanding we have to do political work. We have to do social work. We have to how do I put it? Exercise our duties and rights as human beings on this planet to enact sane policy. I'm thinking about starting a new little journal, Insane in the Membrane. No, Insane in the Brain. A guide back to sanity. So I'll probably do that. I'll let you know later on as we go. And if you follow me on any of my Instagram or anything, you'll see it. You'll see parts of it because I'll give parts of it free, and the other parts I'll probably put on my websites and things. So I'll be back on Wednesday if I'm still around to read more. If you're in the flood zones, and hunker down, be safe, take care. Climate change is kicking our ass, but we deserve it. So we just gotta take our beating because we're the reason. So, but take care of each other. Do the best to be safe. There's a lot of maniacs and madmen and bubbleheads out there. A lot of savages. So just be careful. Hit the links, give the support, and again, take care, and thanks for your time.